welcome back to Pro Wrestling Escape, your weekly break from reality and a deep dive into the wrestling world that we all love. Today we're going dark. We're talking betrayal, backstabbing, and the heel turns that made crowds gasp in shock. From shocking tag team breakups to the unthinkable moment where a certain leg drop happened on Macho Man Randy Savage. This is my top 5 greatest wrestling heel turns of all time. We have also got a This Week in WWE History that you will not believe. And as always, your hot takes in the Crowd Speaks segment. But before we get in, I've got a quick challenge for you out there. If you love wrestling enough to watch betrayals that broke your heart, make sure you're not missing any of these deep dives. Hit that follow button right now, because every week we're talking about the moments you argue with your friends and some maybe your family, and your take might even make the show. This week in WWE history, August 14th, the year 2000. And before we hit number 5 on our list, we're going to travel back to 2000. Monday Night Raw, the Brothers of Destruction. They self-destructed that night. In the main event of Raw, it was The Undertaker taking on Chris Benoit. But before the match could end, Kane attacked his own brother. How could he? One massive choke slam straight through the ring. The crowd absolutely lost their minds, including my 12-year-old self at the time. That heel turn didn't just break up the Brothers of Destruction. It lit the fuse for a much highly anticipated heated feud heading into SummerSlam 2000. Moments like that are absolutely why I love wrestling history, and I'm sure you do as well, because sometimes the betrayals are just as good as the matches. Sometimes the stories are even better than the matches, and that's what keeps us coming back. All right, we're going to dive into the top 5 heel turns in WWE history. Now, again, this is my list. So you got to let me know what you think. Let me know what I left off. Coming in at number 5, Seth Rollins turning on the Shield. June 2nd, 2014. This is when the Shield is at their absolute peak. They had just destroyed Evolution at Payback. Fans thought they were going to dominate the WWE for years, and we did not even think about this. Then Seth Rollins picks up that steel chair and shatters that dream in an instant. Now, it worked. You want to know why it worked? The timing. Nobody saw it coming this early. Now, some of you probably out there are going to say, oh, yeah, I knew it was happening. No, you didn't. Seth, as the architect, cold, calculated, obviously career-focused of the route he was going. Immediate impact. He joins the Authority the very next night. My personal take at that time, I yelled at my TV. Not in a joking way. This was genuine betrayal that I even felt. And that same night, if you didn't want to see Ambrose get revenge immediately, I'm not even sure you had a pulse. Next at number 4, I have Shawn Michaels throwing Marty Jannetty through the barbershop window. Some of you may remember this, some of you may not. The year is 1992. The Rockers, they were pure baby faces of a tag team, and they were loved by many of the fans. They were on Brutus Beefcake's barbershop talk show. Shawn Michaels pretends to make up with Marty Jannetty. They were kind of button heads at the time, and then bam, super kick, head through the glass window. Now, why it worked? Again, the shock factor. This is what keeps us coming back. Tag team betrayals were not that common at that time, especially on TV. The symbolism behind it all with HBK, when he was just done playing nice. And at that moment, his career just took off. Definitely the first step toward becoming the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. I think this was the blueprint for tag team breakups. I mean, even today, those kind of moments we just crave. And let's be honest here. This might be where HBK Shawn Michaels turned heel in real life. Next at number 3, I have Stone Cold Steve Austin siding with Vince McMahon at WrestleMania 17. April 1st, 2001. They're in Houston. Main event, The Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. After a brutal war of a match, Austin shakes hands with Vince McMahon. Left us all stunned. It was a huge payoff for Stone Cold. He was obsessed with regaining the title at that time and just pure shock. Years of hating Vince just gone in a matter of seconds, and very symbolic. And I'm using that word a lot already, but many saw it as kind of the end of the Attitude Era, or maybe they were just pissed off and turned off the TV. I'm pretty sure it's what I did. It's like, I'm not watching this. But I thought for sure after that handshake that a Stone Cold was going to give a stunner to Vince, but nope. Austin was now a true heel by joining Vince McMahon. I mean, that handshake might be the worst handshake of an image in wrestling history. Number 2, we have Triple H revealing himself as the mastermind behind the 2002 Shawn Michaels attack. Now, remember, Shawn Michaels returns after being away for 4 years due to his injuries. This is the summer of 2002. And then all of a sudden, Shawn Michaels is attacked in the parking lot. We had no idea who did it. He was all bloodied laying there. 2 weeks later, Triple H pretends to be Shawn's friend, brings him out. Next thing you know, delivers a pedigree to him. Again, that shock factor. This is what personally I live for as a wrestling fan. I'm sure some of you out there do as well. I think this one definitely worked because they were real life best friends or good friends. I think they had made up at that point. I think this is when Shawn Michaels, kind of started to see who he was and, burned a lot of bridges, and Triple H was still there for him. And I think their bond got even stronger, behind the scenes. So I think having a real life friendship and then doing this kind of heel turn, I think made it that more gratifying. This was perfect for Triple H's The Game persona, and it sparked quite a few years long personal feud and some great matches. That SummerSlam 2002 match, I could watch that every day and never get sick of it. But this heel turn was definitely a character upgrade for Triple H. He went from a top guy to the guy that you just absolutely hated, and that's what you want. It's easy to become a villain, I think. But as I get older, I tend to like the villains of wrestling and Marvel movies too. Now, I do have some honorable mentions before we name number 1. And some of the ones that deserve some love. We have CM Punk turning on The Rock in 2012. It was a perfect setup for his title run. Next we have is Bayley's 2019 chair attack on Becky Lynch. I think we were waiting a long time for Bayley to turn heel. And there's something that happens in wrestling a lot is, you have a baby face, the crowd loves, and then it just becomes stale. It's nothing against the wrestler themselves. They're playing the character to a T. But as a fan, and as we watch this week in and week out, we kind of want to be surprised every now and then. And if that means a heel turn, then so be it. Kind of like how Cody Rhodes right now is a huge baby face. And I'm waiting for him to turn heel because I think he could be a fantastic heel. Kind of showed shades of that when he was in New Japan. And I just think for Bayley, it really, I think a lot of fans started liking her even more. I did. It was great to see. Next I have for an honorable mention is Eddie Guerrero turning on Rey in 2005. I mean, that's just pure emotional devastation right there. Maybe fighting a Dirty Dom at that time. But also the last one I want to mention is, honestly, Dominic Mysterio joining Judgment Day. When he first came out, with Rey, and he had a short haircut and he was playing a baby face and the crowd really wasn't into it. I think just pairing him with Rey, they kind of felt like, he's your dad, so we're going to give you some TV time. And next thing you know, Dirty Dom becomes a heel, and it truly elevated his career. And to this day, he is playing that to a T. You almost kind of like it. I mean, you hated him, obviously, with the crowd booing him for a long time, and then now some of those boos are turning into cheers just because he plays his parts so well. All right, number 1. You guys probably know what it is because I haven't put this person on my top 5 yet, and it's probably the biggest shock heel turn of all time. Yes, it is Hulk Hogan joining the NWO at Bash at the Beach 1996. You had the Outsiders, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash. They're running wild after jumping from WWF over to WCW, and they promised a third man. And let's see, I'm 8 years old at this time. Again, watching it through a black box for the cable box. So the Scrambler, most of you probably know what that is. And during the main event, the storytelling is great. I'm going to go through it again. I know we've all watched it 1,000 times, but I just love talking through it and playing it in my mind. But during the main event, Hogan walks down the aisle, as Hulk Hogan, of course, and all of a sudden looks at the crowd and drops the leg on Macho Man Randy Savage. And everybody is absolutely stunned, including myself and my dad at home. It was just unthinkable. Hogan had been the ultimate babyface for forever since he had hit wrestling mainstream. And for him to turn heel, it was obviously perfect timing because WCW needed a shakeup. And it kind of started with Hall and Nash coming over, but it changed wrestling. I mean, we can't understate that enough. It kicked off the NWO storyline and just reshaped the industry. And in that moment, fans are starting to realize, okay, Hogan's a bad guy now. He joined the Outsiders. Fans are throwing garbage, they're throwing drinks. Scott Hall, Kevin Nash are, spiking the drinks out of the ring. And at one point, Scott Hall had a full drink thrown on him. He just kind of slicked his hair back and just soaked it all in. And then you had the interview. Hogan's interview of turning heel. I'll never forget when he said, all this trash in the ring represents all the people out in the stands. And it's just perfect. And then, of course, right at the end, Tony from WCW, Hulk Hogan, you can go to hell. Still gives me chills. Now, that was probably a terrible, imitation of that, but that's all right. I'm not in the business of that. But that just wasn't a heel turn. I mean, it was like an atomic bomb went off in pro wrestling and just absolutely changed the course. So that was, as you can tell, I was a little amped up for that one because it brings back memories, shaped history is what it is today, and that's why it is my number 1. Let me know what you think. How was my top 5? Would you take anything out, place anything back in, reorder? Was it absolutely awful? Was it perfect? Let me know. Send me a message at Pro Wrestling Escape or Instagram, or leave a comment on the YouTube channel. All right, in our next segment, we have The Crowd Speaks. Now, this is, I'm going to shout out some of y'all for some of your awesome feedback. First we have is at Ethan Dees. He says, Austin Theory is the most underutilized guy on the roster. 1,000%. Now, I know recently, within the last week, it's been reported that Austin Theory either could be injured or he's no longer at WWE. We don't really know the true facts yet. WWE is very good at saying absolutely nothing. We do know whenever they do release wrestlers, there's a non-compete, usually 60 to 90 days. I don't think Theory got released. I think maybe dealing with an injury, but Ethan, I 100% agree. I honestly kind of thought he was going to join Seth Rollins when he made that heel turn, and you could tell he was going to start gathering some wrestlers on his side with Paul Heyman. That didn't happen. It still could, but Austin Theory. He's great in the ring. Really good on the mic. He's got the look. He's young, and he can, I guess, if you guys have listened to and watched some of my other podcast episodes, I'm really big into wrestlers that can sell, not oversell. And I know there's some moments where Austin Theory did oversell, such as like the Stone Cold Stunner, but selling's part of telling that story, and he has that. And he's got the athletic ability, which you really can't teach, but he's also great on the mic, and he's got charisma. So I think hopefully WWE holds on to him, because if not, he'll be a big star in other promotions. But that was a great call out, Ethan. I I hope to see Theory on WWE TV soon. Next up, we have at Jibs. That's JIIBBSS. Appreciate you. Jibs said Mercedes Moné is the greatest women's wrestler ever. Period. That is quite a hill to die on. I can't argue it. I know the gold speaks for itself. I know she rubs recently fans the wrong way, but I kind of like how she's playing that because she's not taking any crap from anybody. She's throwing it back in their face. And she's definitely up there. I feel like people forget she put on some really good matches in WWE with Charlotte Flair, and Bayley, Becky. So let's face it, if she were to come back to WWE, people would be worshiping her, which I think they should. I think as she moves it to AEW, I think that really ticked off a lot of people that, were worshipers of WWE. Like, yeah, she's not that good. She went to AEW, which I don't think that's the case. But that's a good argument. I like that one, and I think I'd be on your side, Jibs. Next up, we have the Shutdown King. All right. Mount Rushmore question. Okay, he gave me his Mount Rushmore. He said for him, Undertaker, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Triple H, and Kevin Nash, and maybe Ric Flair. Those are all really solid. Kevin Nash, that's an interesting one, but everybody knows who he is. He's a part of the biggest faction, I think, ever in WO, and making that big switch from WWF to WCW. And then, of course, Undertaker, Austin, Triple H, Flair, all speak for themselves. All right, so I guess I'll give mine. Now, this could change tomorrow. This is how I currently feel. On my Mount Rushmore, I will say I have Stone Cold Steve Austin. He was the face of the Attitude Era. He carried WWE during the Monday Night Wars. I don't think if they didn't have him, that WWE would have folded during the Monday Night Wars. They didn't have Steve Austin. I mean, he kind of redefined anti-hero characters where he was just such a badass, did whatever the hell he wanted, and people loved it. So yeah, I have him my Rushmore. Second one I have is probably The Undertaker. Not probably, I definitely have The Undertaker on there. I mean, he got the legacy, the loyalty he had to the company, the times he reinvented himself and still was a top guy. The WrestleMania streak, which was legendary. Reports of him being a locker room leader and still is to this day, giving back and becoming a WWE coach on LFG. Yeah, fan favorite. He protected his gimmick like no one else in history. And his gimmick, man, like everybody knows who The Undertaker is. And the best character in WWE history, obviously very good in the ring, athletic for such a big guy. He's on my Mount Rushmore. Number 3 for me, I will have Shawn Michaels on there. Mr. WrestleMania. I think his style of wrestling really revolutionized with his athleticism and his storytelling and just his in-ring genius. He could have a match with anybody and it would just be a great match. He was great at selling. Like I said, he had athletic ability. He was great on the mic. Kind of a dick when he was a wrestler, but sometimes you need that. I really think he's on Rushmore for me. And the last one, everybody argues over this. I don't care. Hulk Hogan is on there. Without Hulk Hogan, you've heard this 1,000 times already on different podcasts, other people shooting their shot on this. But if there's no Hulk Hogan, I wouldn't be talking on this. WWE would not be where they're at. He was the original mainstream crossover star that brought non-wrestling fans into wrestling fans, made wrestling fans stronger wrestling fans. And without the boom, I mean, it's just not what it is today. Helped launch the original WrestleMania, carried the company through the golden era, and then revitalized wrestling again with NWO and WCW. So Hogan's on there. So those are my 4. Let me know what you think about that. All right, and our last crowd speaks. We have at NorB03. Thanks, Nor, for chiming in. Nor has some concerns over the recent WWE premium live events going to ESPN's $30 model in 2026. Now, let's break it down a little bit. WWE and ESPN agreed to a 5-year, $1.6 billion partnership, giving ESPN exclusive U.S. streaming rights for WWE's premium live events starting in 2026. Now, this clearly represents a sharp jump from the previous arrangement with Peacock, which is valued at about $900 million total, so about $180 annually. And they say the price tag is $29.99 a month that will carry the PLEs. And some of the events may also be broadcast on ESPN's linear channels as well. But now about the access, this is what's going back and forth. I still don't think it's fully ironed out. Some people say it is, and some people say it isn't. I tried doing my due diligence, and WWE had said if you already get ESPN through a traditional cable provider, you may not need to pay extra to access the new service. But it still kind of is fuzzy. So as we get closer to that time, I'm sure they'll have an infographic that just makes sense. I think when they came out and announced this, I don't think they had any plans to explain it in simple terms for morons like myself to understand. I've read where if you have YouTube TV or Xfinity and you get ESPN, you'll be eligible for the integration, the PLEs. You won't have to pay anything extra. But regardless, this is a strategic power play for both brands. WWE gains enhanced distribution and legitimacy on the surface, being with ESPN, and then ESPN adds, more elements of cultural staples to its streaming roster. That's acquiring WWE is a big deal. But the success really just depends on if it's done right. It could be a win-win for both sides, but if it's mishandled, it risks alienating a huge chunk of our fan base, WWE's fan base. So we'll see what happens with that. But I love those takes. Keep them coming. You might hear yours on the show next week. Now, before you head out, I want you to picture something. Next week, we're breaking down another wild topic, top 5 something, and your name pops up in the Crowd Speak segment. That only happens if you're locked in. So I want you to hit the follow button right now. Try and drop a quick review on Spotify or Apple Podcast. It'll take 10 seconds, I promise. But what it does, it tells those platforms that this show is worth putting in front of more wrestling fans like yourself. So that means bigger debates, hotter takes, and more chances for you to be a part of the show. But I thank you, and this is your Pro Wrestling Escape. Have a good night.